Welcome back, and we're on to the second square of section 1. It has the look of holly, but the same square could also look like, let's call it poinsettia, or even a snowflake. This particular one has the cream colour, but we're going to be working this one, which has the, it's not pink, it looks pink against the green, but it's actually the slightly more lilac-y pink, and this is the one that we're going to do today. We've got a lot of colours happening in this one. We'll put all of these away for the time being and just concentrate on the first colour, which is the fuchsia pink. Again, 4mm hook, size G, and you also need your scissors and your needle. Stitch marker isn't so essential for this one, but it is a good idea to pop one in the front just to remind you what's the front when you finish the square. And we're going to start with our slip knot on the hook and chain 4 as usual. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, some people will prefer to work with a magic circle to start with. I'm not going to show you how to make a magic circle because it's not my personal choice. I prefer the chain 4, but if you like to use a magic circle, please do go ahead. I'm going to slip stitch into the first chain and pull it through and pull it through, and that gives us our circle of chains with the hole in the middle. And this time we're going to be working with double crochet. Again, in UK terms, double crochet. In US terms, that's single crochet. And we're not doing the granny square like we did in the last one. We've got a different collection of stitches to do. So we're working with the double crochet. I'm not going to put in a standing stitch or standing chain to start with. I'm just going to start with the double crochet. So to do a double crochet, you just put your hook without yarning over first, put it into the center space, pull up the loop, and you've got 2 loops on your hook, yarn over and pull through the 2. Very easy. It's the smallest crochet stitch you will find. And into the center, pull up your yarn, 2 loops on the hook, yarn over and pull through 2. Now you want to make a total of 12 double crochet stitches into this circle. So I've done 2 already. I've just got to do 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 and 12. Now what I would do at this point is counting back from that loop, not the loop, you don't count that one, the one on your hook, you count the one immediately below as number 1. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And just identify that 12th or first double crochet stitch and slip stitch and pull it right through, and we're going to cut this yarn now because we don't need any more of it at this point. And that's your center. This center hole will get pulled as tightly as possible. It's going to just open up again just now, but I will sew it in nice and firmly when I'm sewing in all the ends at the end of the square. And that's round 1 of this square. So next colour is the dark green. And this is where we start to make the leaves. If you just kind of think of that as maybe being the berries, we're now going to do the leaves. So I'm going to avoid where I stopped and started, and I'm going to put my hook in to the top of one of the stitches. I'm not counting which one, just one of them. and I'm going to start my green yarn in my same strange way. So I've got it firmly attached, and this time I'm going to make treble crochet stitches. So chain 2 to be the equivalent of the first treble, and then I'm going to put 2 more into that same stitch. 1, 2, like that. Then I'm going to chain 2, and then I'm going to go in. Now there was my stitch in this, or my 3 stitches in this one. This is the next stitch. I'm going to miss that out, and I'm going to start another cluster of 3 in the second stitch along. 1, 2, 3. Can be a little tight, but don't worry too much. You'll find your way. You find your way quite easily once it does even up and become looser as you work round. So we've done our chain 2. I'm going to chain 2 again and miss the next stitch and put 3 in the next one. So obviously, because we had 12 stitches and we're missing 1 out each time, you will have 6 clusters of 3 trebles. Miss a stitch and go into the next one. I meant to say that I didn't turn over after round 1 because it's easier to see your stitches if you just keep it on the same side. 1, 2. Now this is where the the round started and finished. So we've just, if you're not sure where to put your hook, just look at what you've done. You've done 1, 2, 3, 4 clusters, and we've got 2 more to go in. So let's just look at what's here. If that goes into that space, that stitch there, and you miss 1 out, that's a cluster going in there. Miss 1 out, and that's where you're going to put your next 3 stitches, and that just jumps over that funny bit where you stopped and started round 1. Chain 2. Now you've got 3 stitches left. You're going into the middle one, and put your 3, chain 2, and slip stitch into the top of that first chain 2. Use your fingernail if you find it's not wanting to go through easily, and that way you'll pick up the 2 loops. Pull it through. There we go, and that's round 2. And you can see, I don't know what's happened there, but there we go. That's round 2, and it's formed a little circle. And just make doubly sure that you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 clusters. That's really important. And then we're going to chain 2 and turn over. And the next round is on the reverse side. So we're going to start in this big space here. We've got the chain 2, which is the first treble, and I'm going to treble 1, chain 2. So we've got 2 stitches, chain 2, and 2 stitches, 2 trebles in that space. So you get a cluster of 2, chain 2, and a cluster of 2. Go straight over to the next space without any chains in between, and cluster of 2, chain 2, and cluster of 2. And into the next space, cluster of 2 trebles, chain 2, and 2 trebles. keep pulling these ends. We're going to accumulate a lot of ends, but don't worry. They'll all get sewn in, and I recommend that you do it after every square, because if you don't, it becomes a marathon. So every square, just deal with your ends and leave it nice and tidy. So I've got 2 more to do. And then you just need to slip stitch into the top of your first chain 2, and you can cut your yarn now because that is finished. And there's what it looks like at this point, ends and all. It's actually a hexagon now, isn't it? Next colour to come up is Pinky Lilac, and we're going to just swing that over to the reverse side. Now have a look at what you've got. You've got this slightly smaller space between those clusters, slightly smaller space between these clusters, and then the larger one that's directly above that cluster of 3. Slightly smaller space, larger one, slightly smaller space. So what we're going to do is we're going to start in the smaller space. So that's the space between the 2 clusters, and join the yarn as usual. And yep, you guessed it, you're going to chain 2. 1, 2. This time though, instead of doing treble stitches, you're going to do half treble. So that is yarn over, put your hook into the space, pull up your loop so that you've got 3 loops on the hook, yarn over, and this time pull through all 3 loops, and that's a half treble stitch. And you're going to do that once more so that you've got your chain 2 and 2 half trebles in that smaller space. The next space is the bigger one, and we're going to do something different in here. We're going to start with a treble crochet stitch, and then the next stitch is what's called a front post stitch, and it's a double treble. Now this can sound quite daunting, a front post double treble, but when you break it down, it's not difficult at all. Double treble means it's going to be a longer stitch than a treble stitch. So to achieve that, you want to wrap your yarn around your hook twice rather than just the once. And instead of going into this big space here, what you're going to do is you're going to come down to this group of 3 treble stitches and look for the middle one, this one here. And you're actually going to put your hook underneath that stitch, catch it round, going underneath it. So basically this long part of the stitch, which is called the post, is going to come to the front. So we've got the wrapped twice round the hook, go in, and just, you see what I've done there? It's just come underneath that stitch, pull up your loop. You need to pull it up a little bit because you need to get back up to this height, and then you pull through the first two, pull through the second 2, and pull through the last 2. And that gives you a nice long stitch. And then we've got one more to do because we did a treble to start with. We want to put 3 stitches in there. You need to just push that double treble out of the way a little bit and find that big space and put one more treble into it. And then the next space is the smaller one, so that's 1 half treble stitch because we're back to half trebles, 2 half trebles, 3 half trebles. And then we've come to a big one again, so it's 1 treble stitch, wrap twice, come down and find that the front of that middle stitch, pull your yarn through, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, and a final treble stitch in that same large space. And 3 half treble stitches. Into the next big one, and it's treble, yarn over twice, pick up that middle post, so just look for that middle stitch and put your hook underneath it, pull your yarn through and pull through the first 2, second 2 and last 2, and then a treble stitch to finish that cluster off. 3 trebles, and treble again, twice round the hook into that stitch, pull it up once, twice, 3 times, and a treble to finish. So that's the front post just sits over the top of your work, really. 1, 2, 3. By making these smaller these 3 half treble stitches slightly smaller, it's kind of rounding it off. It's not so much an angular hexagon, and that's what we were wanting. So we've got 1 treble, yarn over twice, pick up that middle stitch, yarn over and pull through so that you've got 4 loops, yarn over, pull through the first 2, yarn over, pull through the next 2, yarn over, pull through the last 2. And 3 half trebles. We're nearly all the way around at this point. 2, 3. And then we've just got the 1 space left for our final cluster. So that's a treble, double treble, front post, and a treble. And then all you need to do is to slip stitch into that top of that first chain 2 and pull your yarn through like that. You're not cutting the yarn at this point because we've got another round of this pale lilac-y pink to go. And we've done 1, 2, 3. That was round 4. Round 5, we're off with that, and what we're going to do is chain 2. This time turn it, and it's time to square off that circle. So I'm going to, because like we did in the last square, because we've turned it and this is now sitting at the right hand side of this square, I'm going to make a complete corner. So that is 1, 2 treble stitches, chain 2 and 3 treble stitches into the same space, and that's a corner made. You can see that. This next space I'm going to put in 3 half treble stitches, so that's yarn over, put your hook in, pull up your loop, yarn over and pull through all 3 stitches. So we've got 3 of those, and then 3 again of half treble stitches, 2, 3, and you can see how that's forming a nice straight edge now. Time to do the next corner, so that's 1, 2, 3 trebles, back to working with trebles, chain 2 and 3 trebles, and then what comes next? 3 half trebles. 1, 2, 3, and then another cluster of 3 half trebles, 2, 3, and that's all you need to do all the way around there. The next one is a corner, because you've got 2 lots of 3 half trebles between each corner. So we've got, in this one here, it's treble 3, chain 2, treble 3, 3 half trebles, 3 half trebles, another corner, and then we've got 2 spaces. So what I'm going to do is work all the way around, and I'll see you when I'm back at that point here. There you see, I've worked all the way around. Of course, this is the reverse side because our front post trebles are on the other side. So this was a complete corner that we made to start with. So you just need to slip stitch into the top of that first chain 2, and you can cut this yarn now because we're finished with it. And that is the end of round 1, 2, 3, 4. Is that round 5? Yeah. Time to turn over. Now, if you are unsure about what's the front and the back, although the front post trebles do tend to give the game away, then just put another stitch marker in just to remind you, because we're going to put in 2 rounds of this double crochet like we did in the last square, and of course they are made on the front. So that stitch marker will just keep you right, and this is just similar to the previous square, in fact, although the difference is that I'm changing colour between the 2 rounds of treble crochet clusters, so you won't need the stitch marker. So we're on the front of our square, and this is going to be my first round of double crochet. I'm just going to start it off, and then I'll come back when I'm ready to start the next round of treble clusters. But there we go, into the top of each stitch, trying to keep the tension reasonably light so that there's plenty of yarn. It's not pulling tight and disappearing into the previous round. So I'm going to work all the way around with that, and I'll come back when it's time to start the next round. So that is the red round of double crochet, worked all the way around, and remember it was 3 double crochet in each of the corners, and I finished it off where I started with 1 last double crochet in that first corner. Now I'm going to put that down for 1 second because I have another one that is already on the go. I'll put this one out of the way. This is identical. It doesn't have the stitch marker on it, but apart from that it's exactly the same, and I had already attached my pale green yarn into the corner, so I thought I would just continue with it. And this is exactly the same as the first square, and all you need to do is to attach your yarn, chain 2, 2 trebles, chain 2 and 3 more trebles, and remember, you try and keep that corner nice and clean with the 3 trebles on each side. And then into the now here's an example of where it can sometimes get a little bit messy looking. Now remember, I said before that you want to come underneath this single strand of yarn, so put your needle in below it, and by doing that, hook, and by doing that it opens up that space and makes it a cleaner looking space. So underneath that, 3 trebles. What I didn't say was we're on the front side of the square, because if you remember, we had turned it to do the last round of the pinky lilac. It's on its reverse side, so this is turned over, and I'll just work around with that and then come back to do the last of the double crochet, and we'll soon be finished this square as well. So I'll see you in just a second. Round 7 is now complete, and it's time for the next double crochet round, and that's going to be in this deep violet colour. This is the front, of course, because it's the one that's got the front posts. There's the other square with the stitch marker on. So this is the front, and we always do the double crochet on the front. So I'm going to go ahead now and make a round of double crochet into each stitch as before. And remember just what I said in the last square, the actual count of stitches doesn't matter. If you miss one or you put 2 in by mistake, it doesn't matter, because of course you only see little bits of the round. So you work all the way around with your double crochet in the violet, and then turn it once more and work your final round of trebles, and this time it's in the dark green, so that final round will be on its reverse. Now I'm not going to do that in the video because we've done this already in the previous square, but this is how it will finish. And this one has been neatly sewn in. The first, the very first tail has to be pulled really tightly to close up that hole in the middle. And remember, pull all your tails through to the reverse side. This is the reverse side because that's the front, but any that are sort of straggling on the front, pull them through to the back and make sure you make a nice tidy job of your square. And that is the second square of the center. Now, this one looks like holly, and like I said before, this one looks quite like, this way round, sorry. This one looks quite like a snowflake, and it's just the same pattern. And I've got one somewhere that looks like a poinsettia. So once you have worked out how to do this square, you can do all the others. And then once all that's done and you've got all the squares done according to the pattern, all the different you can lay them out according to the pattern. There will be a chart or a photograph on the pattern itself that shows you the layout for the squares, and then the fun can begin with the joining. Now the next set of videos coming up are the continuous join as you go tutorials. These are not done with the squares from the Sugar Plum Blanket, but they are a very detailed tutorial which is already on my YouTube channel, and I've just linked it in here because the method is exactly the same, and it will take you very carefully, step by step, how to attach each square. I'll be back after the 2 continuous join as you go tutorials with the next part of the Sugar Plum Blanket. See you then.